Our convention is the largest gathering of blind people anywhere in the world on an annual basis, and that's because we're a membership organization of blind people.
Maryland this way!
And this is all about living the life you want, being independent, blind folks coming together to learn, network, help empower other blind people across the country so we can bring awareness.
One of the things we do is we post people to be sort of talking signs.
Ohio! Michigan! Right here!
So that blind people have an audio target to shoot for, because obviously we can't read the printed signs.
There he is, Mr. Loud Voice. I like
Michigan!
that.
Right here!
We believe that any person who is blind can live the life they want as long as they learn the skills that they need to, and as long as we help to dispel the misconceptions about what blind people can do.
A one-of-a-kind robotics fulfillment center just opened in North Las Vegas. Unlike Amazon's 2 other fulfillment centers in Nevada, North Las Vegas's features new technology making it quicker for you to receive your items.
So if you ordered something and you ordered something on Amazon.com, you'd press buy. Essentially what would happen is we would stow the product first onto a robotic shelf. After you click buy, we would then pick the item.
After each item is purchased, an employee hand places it in a yellow tote, where it's then sent to be packaged.
Working with the Amazon Drive units, it doesn't replace jobs. Instead, they work hand in hand, and it helps the employees with their workflow.
As associates now are also being more efficient while working with the robotics and also learning a brand new skill set with using robotics.
Each robotic Amazon Drive unit can hold up to 1,500 pounds. North Las Vegas's location holds most small to medium products you find online. Employees hand package everything that's shipped. Amazon's technology tells them which boxes are needed for the items, then it cuts the tape for each box. Then it heads down this slide to the outbound area.
It allows us ultimately to get more products out the door and faster shipping to our customers.
With Prime Day in less than a week, this new technology will help members get their products in as quickly as 1 day. Reporting in North Las Vegas, Alexander DeLeon, Fox 5 News, Local, Las Vegas.
One transgender man told me it's not simply about physical looks. Instead, he just wants other people to see what he's seen in himself his entire life.
I've been identified as male as early as 3 years old.
His birth certificate reads female, but DJ Labayan Arvelo knew that wasn't right.
As sure as you know is you're left-handed or you're right-handed. I knew exactly who I was.
At 21, DJ started taking hormones. The testosterone changed his voice and his facial hair.
It's different when you're a trans person because you always feel out of place.
In 2012, DJ met Jonah. A few years later, they got pregnant.
Technically, I incubated her. She was a breech baby, so I had to have a C-section in order for her to be born. It was the most masculine thing that I've ever done.
Their daughter, Anuhea, was born in 2015.
You ate all the candies?
I ate all the lollipops.
All the lollipops. Maybe it was some sort of a hidden gift for me to be a trans person, so that I can be a gay person to bring this beautiful person into the world. She knows no color, she knows no sex, no gender, no nothing.
But DJ knows not everyone has that same outlook.
It is direly important for us to just be able to walk through a room and not have anybody look at us twice.
So DJ got a full hysterectomy.
And then this just past January is when I had got my chest done.
The doctor who did the surgery, Dr. John Brocious, he teaches at the UNLV School of Medicine.
It kind of blew me away that this day and age that people were still, treating transgender patients as second-rate citizens.
That's when Dr. Brocious noticed the lack of resources in Las Vegas for transgender people.
There are very few providers in town that can provide not only the surgical care for them, but also the hormonal care, the psychiatric care, the counseling that they need.
He estimates he performs 15 gender surgeries a month, and the list keeps growing.
These patients have been waiting for their surgeries for almost their whole lives.
A lot of us do a lot of research for many, 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 many years.
Ultimately, one day we would like to offer the full spectrum of surgeries, medical treatments, therapies, even under one roof one day.
Dr. Brocious is creating a network of healthcare providers in the Valley who have the same passion as him.
My goal is also to offer genital surgeries, hopefully within the next year.
This is the sort of care DJ says he only could have dreamed of years ago.
He wants to do all these amazing things for the transgender community that geographically, nobody's really doing in this region.
DJ is Mr. Las Vegas Pride 2019, the first transgender man to hold the title. While he's secure in his identity, happy with who he is on the inside, DJ knows the feeling all too many transgender people face while making the transition.
I can't even explain to you the confidence that I have just being able to walk through a place and not have people just be like, because that is a look and that's a feeling that never ever goes away.
DJ says that confidence is something he was seeking for decades, and it wouldn't have been possible without providers like Dr. Brocious.
These are the happiest patients that I've ever encountered in my entire career. So life hasn't been kind to the transgender people, and the more that I work with them, the more that I realize that, and it really has created a passion for me.
We have been working around the clock. We're averaging about 12, 13 hours a day. A lot of hard hours, a lot of hard work, but we love it. We love to bring this to our community. The residents enjoy it, and we are Southern Nevada's only parade now.
We are so excited. This is the 25th annual of the Summerlin Patriotic Parade, and it's bigger and better this year, and we have a lot of new surprises for the community. Float behind me is new. It's the Mary Poppins float. We also have Vegas Golden Knights fan favorite coming back. We'll have an Aladdin float this year. The Fourth Awakens comes back. So if you had some favorites, they'll be back, and we'll also have some new ones. We're expecting over 40,000 people to show up this year, and we really love that all the community comes out and supports this event. Come early, grab your seat on the route, and enjoy the day.
Had an issue as it relates to dumpster divers in this alley. There used to be 40 dumpsters, and they would just throw it all in there. And so when I had the opportunity to develop this parking lot behind us, we saved a piece of land to put a common trash enclosure, and from that created this. It's not as much as a tourist attraction as people have been making it out to be, but it's really a community space. It's art-driven. There'll be a lot of great events that'll occur in here over the next year.
What you're seeing today is our motor school. This is where the motor officer learns how to operate a police motorcycle. In order to become a motor cop, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go through 16 hours of what we call 2-day safe rider. They have to pass that with a minimum of 75%.
Oh, good one.
Once they do that, they take an oral board. The oral board is questions about the job and how they would handle the job.
You're just cutting yourself short up here, and that makes you try and lean the bike harder.
Once they're assigned, we put them through a 160-hour motor school, which is what you're seeing behind us. They're learning how to operate a motorcycle in a different environment.
There you go, ride it deep. Look out, eyes out. There you go.
It teaches them everything from using the throttle, clutch, and brake in unison, as well as learning the 3 L's, which is look, lock, and lean.
There you go. Eyes out, eyes out.
All this comes into play when you're taking these motorcycles into these tight patterns. They go through 40 hours of basic collision investigation, where they learn how to go out and actually investigate accidents and learn the elements that we need in crash reports to get the funding and stuff for streets, what we need for fatal investigations. After that 40 hours, then we put them through a 16-hour advanced roadside impairment detection and enforcement training, so they can begin to recognize not only people under the influence of alcohol, but also drugs, because that is a big problem. After that, we put them through search warrant training, where they learn how to do search warrants for blood draws, because that's a requirement now, as well as doing preliminary breath testing. And then on the last day, we'll put them through the radar certification. So when they hit the streets after our school, they are a complete officer, and they can go right to work and not have any problems.
Every traffic officer has to go through this motor school, and it's been a tradition that we've always done. And so with motor school, the last thing you want to hear is the 444, which means officer down, emergency. And that is the key right here, is that they go through the motor school, they go through the field training process with the traffic safety, and they understand exactly what they need to do out there on the streets. So when we require them to go out there and make citations, make stops, potentially stop those violent criminals that are out there, that they can do it in a safe manner. They also be able to run in code 3 with the lights and sirens. That's key, right? Because we want them to come home every night and end their shift safely. That's the most important thing, reference what we're trying to accomplish out here in motor school.
We ride 120 hours out here in the cones. We do a 400-mile endurance ride to let them know the fatigue factor that they're going to experience on the bike.
Get all the real estate. Look out the gate. Eyes up, eyes up. Nice.
Our main job is to make the streets safer. And in order to do that, we have to take drunks off the road. And enforcement is an aspect of that, because without enforcement, there's no accountability for the driver. In 2018, we had 138 fatals with less officers on the street. In 2019, our enforcement went up, the numbers of officers went up, number of fatals went down. We only had 115 fatals last year. So there's a direct correlation there.
It's all about saving lives. We have to change human behavior. We know that the fatals are up. They're up by 1 right now. We have a total of 10 this year. We had 9 at this time last year. We know that there's pedestrian error that's going on right now that might be causing the majority of our fatals at this time. So we really want to make sure that we're out there enforcing the laws, doing what we got to do, make sure that we're increasing the safety in our community.
This is where we keep tortoises in the interim prior to adoptions. Whether they're found or injured, depending on the capacity of the injury, they're kept here. If they have to be kept in a sterile environment, then they are kept indoors for a temporary means. Animal Control and Animal Foundation do not take in desert tortoises, and they pretty much all get filtered in through Tortoise Group. On rare occasions, we do have wild tortoises that are hit by cars or different situations where they can't be returned to the wild, and those ones will also be kept here typically. The main reason why we don't release tortoises back out into the wild and why it's illegal is the main concern is disease. And upper respiratory infections are really common with captive tortoises, but we also see it in the wild population as well, but it is more prevalent in captivity. The desert tortoise is listed under the Endangered Species Act as far back as 1990. Essentially, people were grandfathered in to keep them as pets that already had them as pets, as well as their offspring. They're not allowed to cross state lines. They can't be released back out into the wild. They can't be taken from the wild, and they can't be sold or traded or bought. There are still pretty high fines if you get caught taking a desert tortoise out of the desert. They're listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, but as far as an actual number, most people are pretty standoffish to actually give a number of how many are left in the wild.
Is there reasons or factors that have caused them to be threatened?
So the main factor would probably be human development. There are other factors as far as predation, disease. There's very big common misconceptions, and it is really contradicting because we have a bunch in captivity, but these tortoises can't be utilized as a recovery means to the wild population. So we treat them as two separate populations. These are all Mojave Desert tortoises, so they are native to the Mojave Desert. They get to be about 10 to 13 inches in shell length. Occasionally, on a very rare occasion, we'll have a couple monsters come through. We usually have 2 or 3 that are 15, 16 inches in shell length. That's not normal for wild tortoises at all. That's probably because they were fed a really high protein diet. We've heard of tortoises that have been fed dog food, and then essentially you have a tortoise on steroids. They are very opportunistic eaters. They'll eat a lot of things. Desert tortoises are herbivores, so in the wild they eat mostly cacti, desert wildflowers, and annual grasses. So that's what we try to imitate when we're giving them a captive diet as well. Common misconceptions are fruits and vegetables. Most people, I mean, you'll see millions of pictures of tortoises eating strawberries all over the internet, and while it's very, very cute, it's definitely not the best thing for them. A female can have anywhere from 1 to 14 eggs in a clutch and up to 3 clutches in a year. So you can go from having 2 tortoises to having 36 in one season. Another fun thing about the desert tortoise is females can store sperm in their systems. So even if you separate your mating pair, a female can produce viable eggs for several years. We have had females that have had eggs or laid eggs in people's yards that have adopted. We ask that they don't incubate those eggs. We're already pretty inundated with captive tortoises as it is, and those babies can't be used for recovery at this point, so they're not really doing any means to help conservation efforts. We don't see pyramiding with wild tortoises. That doesn't happen. They have nice smooth shells. It only happens with captive tortoises that were probably raised indoors. Pyramiding is when the plates on the shell are raised up, so you'll see some tortoises in our habitat that have bumpy shells, and that's what we refer to as pyramiding. The main component of a desert tortoise habitat is, one, you need a backyard because they do need to live outdoors. The person would be required to build a burrow because that's the most important aspect where tortoises go to escape the extreme temperatures. We ask that people plant edible plants for the tortoise to graze and browse. Make sure that their yard is escape-proof because these guys are really good at escaping yards, and a little water dish. Because all desert tortoises are still considered wildlife, they belong to the people of Nevada. So when you adopt a tortoise, you're not actually an owner, you're a custodian or a keeper of the tortoise, and they can live to be 80 to 100 years in captivity, so it's definitely a long-term commitment, and we do see people that surrender tortoises because they're essentially can no longer take care of their tortoise and they want to make sure that it's going to a good home before they go on.